Hi, I'm Esther.
And I'm Sean.
I write about AI news here at Tech Target.
And I edit Esther's stories.
We're here to talk to tech experts about everything AI, from open and closed models to AI agents and who's ahead in the generative AI race.
And even the elusive AGI.
We've got it covered, right, Sean?
Yep, we've got it covered. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Targeting AI podcast from Informa Tech Target. Our guest, Ben Flast, is Director of Product Management at MongoDB, and he's also the resident AI expert at MongoDB, which is one of the leading NoSQL database developers. MongoDB is one of the most widely used NoSQL databases. It's got a big chunk of the market and more than 55,000 customers, many of them in the tech, financial services, healthcare, retail, and government sectors. Some editions of MongoDB are open source, like many other tech vendors, including database vendors and other data management companies. MongoDB has moved aggressively recently to incorporate generative AI into its offerings. Welcome to the pod, Ben.
Thanks. Great to be here.
We're so excited to have you, Ben. So we want to jump into it. And MongoDB jumped into Gen AI pretty early in December of 2023, which was just over a year after OpenAI introduced ChatGPT, sparking this Gen AI explosion. Nothing has been the same ever since. And so you guys introduced your vector search and workload management tools to enable users to develop Gen AI applications. Why did you move so quickly into Gen AI, and as it worked out for you and your customers?
Yeah, so it's funny. We released into GA in December of 2023, but actually we had been working on vector search for more than a year prior. We had it in a private preview, and then we moved it into a public preview later on to get kind of customer feedback, make sure it was performing as customers were expecting, kind of handling all of the different requirements that were really quickly evolving around vector search. But vector search as a capability had actually been around for even longer than we were working on it, and really we kind of got into at the point I would say is in many ways kind of like the apex of some of the excitement around it. And so far it's been amazing. So fundamentally, at the end of the day, vector search's relevance for Gen AI and large language models has been its ability to kind of provide semantic search to give the models kind of factual information to ground their responses in. And we've seen just kind of a host of applications, both focused around kind of retrieval augmented generation, feeding information to large language models, as well as just like basic semantic search, where you're kind of searching based on meaning, pop up with the release of the capability.
You made another move in Gen AI, the Gen AI area, with your introduction of Atlas stream processing to enable real-time updates of Gen AI models, an integration with Amazon Bedrock, and the MongoDB AI applications program, which includes AI advisory services. So what were your objectives with these new capabilities? And I think some of them are developer focused. And how do they work?
Yeah, so I think one of the most exciting announcements we made last week was around the model context protocol, which is the Anthropic standard, if you will, for providing tool use to these large language models. And so, like we've been making innovations inside of streaming. We've kind of created partner programs to bring together like a range of these capabilities. But with the release of MCP, we've really just doubled down on our commitment to the community around use and building applications using AI capabilities. And so, very early on, we were supported inside of LangChain and Llama Index and the other kind of app building frameworks for AI. And this is just, part of our, ongoing commitment that has always been there, and kind of the open source DNA of MongoDB, to both, contribute and engage with the community. And with MCP that we released just recently, we're really excited to kind of enable one of the most exciting use cases for uh, large language models and agentic workflows, which is really just helping developers be more efficient. And so, we released the MCP server, which allows developers inside of kind of AI empowered IDs to access both MongoDB, the database, as well as Atlas, the managed cloud platform. And so, with this introduction, we are kind of building on what the community was already kind of experimenting with. We've seen kind of several contributions from the community around MCP, and now we've just released our own official announcement. Our own official MCP server.
Okay, cool. I have a couple follow-ups because before we jump into agentic, I wanted to know more about why you decided to integrate with MCP, right? Or you decided to work with MCP, and also what your thoughts were around agents because Gen AI is new, but agentic AI is also really, really new, and it is the buzzword of the year, so to speak. So, what does agentic AI mean to you, and how are you planning on using it going forward? But also, like, why MCP, and what about Anthropic was inspiring?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the why I think is really just kind of back to that fundamental commitment and interest in the community. We see so much innovation and creativity coming out of the community. We want to make sure to both support it and engage with it, and also learn from it, right? So we learn a ton from just engaging with the community who are building new application workflows that utilize MongoDB or don't utilize MongoDB. That teaches us just as much. And so we have a really deep commitment to engaging with the community, and that goes all the way back to some of our early commits and integrations into things like LangChain. So I see MCP as just kind of a continuation of that story, which is just engaging with the community who's doing so much innovation in the open source world around these new capabilities, new application flows, etc. And then I think the reason for why MCP is that they came out in November of last year, and it was maybe like in a kind of slow burn initially, and then it just kind of caught fire. And with that, it's been exciting to see how many AI powered tools are using it as a kind of means of communication, right? Because that's what MCP really does. It provides LLMs a good way to interact with other services in a fairly standardized way. And so with all of that excitement, developer workflows became one of like the best fit uses, which fits very cleanly within kind of our target customer of like the builder, right? And so making their lives easier is just completely aligned with where our focus is. So MCP became like a real no-brainer. And specifically, we wanted to just kind of evolve on top of what we had seen open source committers do when they created some MCP servers for MongoDB, the database. And we wanted to kind of evolve it to be MongoDB, the database, as well as Atlas, the platform, to again just like drive down all of the complexity that developers have to engage with when building applications.
And also, you spoke about agentic. How did MongoDB get into the agentic space, and what about agentic? Is what are you doing in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, agentic is very exciting, right? I think it's kind of the new application pattern, if you will, of AI capabilities, and we're really kind of exploring a variety of options. Um, but today we have a couple places where we intersect. But the thing I'd like to kind of maybe just ground all of this in is for MongoDB as a database company, our lifeblood is, storing and securing and protecting and making durable your data, right? And so we see ourselves relate to kind of agents and agentic workflows through that lens. Like, what are the data requirements of agents going to be? What are they going to need out of a database? And so, first and foremost, we've seen some experimentation and some new products come out. An example would be LangGraph from LangChain, right? Where they have an agent orchestration, framework. We are actually supported as one of the few databases that can actually be used to do what's called checkpointing when using LangGraph. And what that does is it lets you persist the state of your agent so that you can do kind of human in the loop workflows or go back and kind of change something that's already been executed, all of these things are necessary for agentic workflows to be durable and, kind of dependable. And us having kind of the primitive of MongoDB, which, is a durable and dependable database, is kind of the perfect thing to be the memory for agents of the future. So that's kind of how we're engaging with agents in general, and that's how we kind of plug into LangGraph, for instance, and in addition to all of our integrations with LangChain. And then when you think about MCP, right, another way you can think about agents is that agents need tools. MCP is a way to access tools, and a database can be a tool, right? And so not only can database be like the core memory of an agent, but it also may be something that an agent just needs to interact with. And when you think about agents for developer productivity, it's what we put a lot of work into around MCP server, right? How can we make sure developers who are using like agentic IDEs can easily access MongoDB? And that's where we're thinking about MCP. And so just to sum it up, I would say we're focused on this concept of memory, which is kind of an abstract concept around agents. But then from the perspective of like the things that we build, we're really just focused on making sure that, customers who have use cases that they're bringing to life that are using agents in one way or another, we're effectively supporting them.
Perfect. So what other Gen AI capabilities would you like to highlight, and how do AI and Gen AI make your database work better?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I think about it, there's kind of like two arms of the AI capabilities that we're releasing, right? One is the AI capabilities for developers building AI based applications, right? That would be kind of vector search, right, where you're doing search using vectors, which are produced by embedding models. And to that end, right, we've introduced vector search. We have a fast transactional database, and just recently we acquired a company by the name of Voyage AI, which produces what are called embedding and re-ranking models, which are two different types of AI models that are used in partnership with your data to either power vector search or to re-rank the results of a search to kind of give you that last bit of accuracy around kind of quality of answer. And these are the things that we're doing inside the database. And so, Voyage is crucial, and we're really excited to figure out new ways to plug kind of these embedding and ranking models into the database experience, which will just kind of reduce the level of complexity a developer needs to engage with to build a specific capability. And so that's like super exciting on the kind of capabilities you release that developers will build into their applications. The other arm is what I would call kind of the developer productivity enhancements that AI enables, right? And very quickly last year, we introduced, it might have even been the year before, we introduced AI generated queries inside of Compass, which is our IDE for interacting with a database. And so you would say, I need a query that's going to do XYZ, and we would just generate it out for you. This was like a great tool to get customers started, drive down some of the complexity of authoring queries. So that's like a great story. And I think MCP, which we just released, is kind of an evolution of that. So not only can you generate queries, and interact with the data in your database, but now you can also interact with the cloud platform. And so I think this kind of pattern of just enhancing the developer experience by embedding AI in really thoughtful ways, which I think is really key, right? You can't just like put it everywhere, right? But being thoughtful about kind of where you expose it and how you expose it to make sure you make developers' lives easier. Don't, kind of hide complexity that they need to understand. This is kind of what I'm really excited about on the developer productivity part of things.
Okay, thanks for that. So, switching gears to open source. So, is there a way that your open source editions or your open source qualities work a certain way with open source AI models and proprietary models, or does it work the same? And what are the advantages, disadvantages of both open source and proprietary models for people working with MongoDB?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is open source or proprietary large language models or embedding models, they all work with MongoDB. So that doesn't provide kind of a dichotomy or anything. But as MongoDB, with our open source, database, we are committed to community and kind of contributing code back to the community. That's one of the reasons we decided to make the MCP server open source. Obviously, it's part of an open source standard, and that's kind of the whole point. But all of that is just kind of around our commitment to kind of engaging with the community and making kind of how we execute, available to developers to see and engage with. And so the thing I would just mention around open source that I'm particularly excited about on our end of things is that we will be bringing search and vector search to our community and enterprise offerings. Um, you know, uh, these should come probably later in the year for community in particular. And we're really thrilled to kind of finally have these be part of the kind of community offerings of MongoDB. And we're really excited to see how people are going to take advantage of them. We've taken our time to do this, and that's been primarily focused on kind of just making sure that these are really kind of robust, mission critical, ready capabilities. And so we're thrilled about that, and that's going to be kind of just furthering our commitment to open source in general. And then on the model side of the house, I would say we are kind of eagerly watching and looking to understand kind of how innovations in models are going to move. I think when we first saw Llama 3, everyone was kind of blown away with the quality that was able to be produced inside of this open source model. And I think there was kind of this narrative around things catching up, open source to kind of proprietary. I think what we've seen since then has been even more confirmatory events around kind of DeepSeek and like the events around that. That said, I will say as of late with Llama 4, which I think wasn't received maybe quite as well, and with just innovations in the proprietary models, I think you're starting to see again kind of just the benefits that the proprietary models are able to drive. And so I think it's very much kind of not a solved question, but we're kind of eagerly watching and looking forward to kind of contributing more to that conversation and kind of make sure that whatever model you choose to use, we are a database that will support that.
I find that interesting, and it also leads to another question, which is we talked about open source, but what about small versus large models? How do you guys work around that or view that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for us very directly, we see it, very immediately, right? With Voyage AI, the company we just acquired, they have embedding models of a variety of sizes and re-ranking models of a variety of sizes. That, I think, is kind of the most clear example of where, one size is kind of purpose fit. And what I mean by this is, as a developer, as a builder, I'm building a search experience, or I'm using search capabilities to enhance a model's output, and I need to achieve some level of quality for those results. So I need like the answers to be relevant to the questions I'm asking. And that said, the larger the model I use, the larger the embeddings that I'll produce, and the more storage I'll have, and it can have impacts on performance and cost, etc. So by having a variety of model sizes, we enable developers to really kind of fine tune the kind of cost that they're going to spend for the retrieval quality that they need to achieve. And that's kind of, very measurable and clear. I think what we're seeing when it comes to large language models and small language models, right, is that, it's a chance to optimize your cost when you have high confidence that your use case can be served by a smaller model that has some very specific training set or training, kind of objective. And so what, we're excited about, right, is model sizes coming down, because we think that just like democratizes, access. It makes it easier to build on these systems, and it drives down latency, which is all very exciting. But so far, what we've seen is that many builders kind of find it most productive to start with the largest model, prove out your product market fit, prove out your ability to serve a use case and scale, and then often kind of move to smaller models to optimize cost. And you can do that once you have product market fit, because you have kind of this function you can work against, right, which is the quality required by your application. That said, I know there are like certain use cases and capabilities that it like just makes sense to start with a small model. But when thinking of these things as just kind of general language models, that framing is kind of how I like to think about choosing between small and large and kind of how to get from A to B.
You've done well as an independent, but you still compete with tech giants as well as other independents such as MariaDB and Couchbase. How does your approach to integrating tools to enable Gen AI development help you with that?
Yeah, so I think we see this as kind of a key differentiator. When you think about MongoDB, the database, you think about developer experience, right? We're all about making sure that as a developer, you can be as productive as you need to be, and as productive as you can be. And so that's kind of a key part behind the story of us adding search and vector search in the first place, right? We saw developers building applications, using databases, and eventually needing to bolt on some sort of search capability to do some sort of relevant search. Same thing happened when vector came along, right? You just needed to bolt it on to your transactional database, your existing store of data. We really just wanted to kind of drive down the complexity of building those systems and remove like a lot of the friction for developers when it comes to innovating. And so that's how we think about competitors. That's how we think about the space in general, which is like how can we make developers' lives easier? Where can we remove friction without removing capability, right? And so what we're really committed to doing is continuing to provide additional capabilities that developers need in order to build, whether that's just developer experience in the form of MCP using kind of agentic IDEs or adding search or vector search, whatever it may be. We want to just make these easy to consume and reduce the friction and burden for developers to both build and then maintain and run, right? Because we don't want to just make it easy to build and then have unscalable solutions. And at the same time, we don't want to be able to provide the most scalable database of all time, but it's completely impossible to use. And so we're really focused on kind of the marriage of those two principles and concepts. And in doing so, I think we've really been able to kind of differentiate ourselves against the competition. And the last thing I'll just mention about this is, in many ways, at the core or the center of all of that is the MongoDB document model, right? Which is what's very unique about MongoDB and allows you as a developer or an agent to engage with data in a very native and flexible and easy to use format. And that's just been key to the success of MongoDB.
Okay, thanks. Switching gears again. So, how are you looking at AI governance and safety issues, and what do you have coming up in your roadmap in that area?
Yeah, so as a database, we play a little bit less inside of that space than some of the other players. With our embedding models, even still, we're not doing kind of generation, if you will. But what we see as a kind of very obvious mitigation to people who do have challenges around governance is using data to ground their results, right? That's one of the easiest ways to kind of put guardrails around the responses you're going to get out of your models and make them as consistent as possible. So from our perspective, RAG and databases are a great way to kind of build governance systems around this. And the other component that kind of comes to mind for developers looking to kind of build systems that they can have high confidence in or meet enterprise requirements are things like encryption at rest and encryption in transit, and then role-based access controls, right? So if you need to kind of lock down who has access to what information, a database, and one like MongoDB with role-based access controls for our database users, is a great way to ensure that you can kind of effectively govern what information is being provided to who. And so these are kind of the security features that we implement inside of the database that can then be leveraged inside of these type of workflows that have kind of reliance on governance and compliance and things like that.
Can you please describe some customer use cases that benefit significantly from AI and Gen AI capabilities in MongoDB?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one that kind of jumps to mind is Novo Nordisk. So they have a platform that they've built internally that uses Amazon Bedrock and MongoDB Atlas. And what it does is it dramatically accelerates the time to generate what's called a clinical study report. And this is a crucial piece of information for new drug discovery. And in the past, it took 12 weeks to execute on this. And with their new platform built on both MongoDB Atlas and Bedrock, they were able to bring this down to 10 minutes. And so, enhancing the speed and efficiency of their teams to kind of develop new medications and drugs and bring these things to market has a massive impact. And I think the stat that I had heard a long time ago was that, each day sooner that a medication gets delivered can add around $15 million in revenue to the company. And so, this is an example of a really transformative application built inside of Novo Nordisk that had a huge outcome on driving really kind of business outcomes for them. So that one's extremely exciting. We also have customers doing interesting things in the legal space. So Iron Mountain, they have built kind of a document repository store that they want to be able to kind of search over the kind of digital creations of physical documents. And so they use Atlas and vector search in order to kind of query that data. And then the last one that I'll just kind of call out is a company by the name of 4149, and they're a startup. They're building AI agent teammates who can join Zoom calls, join Slack channels, read white papers and company 10Ks and reports. And just kind of in an automated fashion perceive what's happening with a team and kind of add and help kind of organize information to make that team more efficient. And so this concept just seems really exciting to me to kind of just, passively or ambiently kind of view and watch and monitor work product that's going on and kind of in a very opportunistic and kind of smart way insert these agentic experiences that just kind of free up people's minds and headspaces to do kind of the more mission critical work. And so that was really exciting too.
All right. So as we start to close up here, what else can you tell us? Tell us what's in the future for MongoDB and AI and Gen AI and agentic AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know I've mentioned it a couple times, but the new company, Voyage.ai, who recently joined MongoDB, they're, pioneers in the space of embedding and re-ranking models. They have models that perform, world class, which make it all the easier to build, AI retrieval capabilities to either power semantic search or power retrieval augmented generation. And we're thrilled to continue to make those embedding models and re-ranker models available to anyone building any application, however they choose, right? And so we're excited to kind of have those APIs available and kind of be available to builders however they want to use them. The other thing that I'll just say, and I can't say too much more about it, is, but we've been thrilled to see the speed with which they've been able to continue to execute after joining MongoDB, and we should be seeing some new innovations coming out of them very shortly. And so I would say definitely stay tuned for that. And if you haven't seen Voyage.ai, I would go to Voyage.ai. It's their documentation as well as their platform, and it's all available today. You can try out their models, which just have some really exciting performance capabilities around retrieval quality. And yeah, there's definitely a lot more to come from there.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Ben. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also reach out to me directly at benjamin.flast@mongodb.com. I love talking to customers and builders, developers who are working on different things. You can always reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to speak to you about what you're building in the space, but also LinkedIn works too. And definitely go to MongoDB Atlas. MongoDB.com and our Atlas Cloud platform. If you have any kind of application you're looking to build, we're thrilled to kind of offer a forever free tier of our database, so that if you just want to get started, want to try some things out, that is available, free to use, and very easy to access.
Well, there you have it. And for our audience and our listeners and our viewers, please feel free to comment, engage with our content, share it with your friends and family and everyone under the sun, and leave a good review so that we can continue to invite. And also, if you have any suggestions for guests, send them our way as well. Thank you so much, Ben, for appearing on this podcast. We appreciate your time, and thank you to our audience. We'll see you next time on the Targeting AI podcast. Bye.
To hear the full audio podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, TuneIn, Podbean, and other popular podcast platforms.